It's time for Come and Talk It with your host, Michael Cargill, brought to you by Texas Law Shield. Over the last decade, Michael has championed and supported the rights of law-abiding Texans to own and use firearms. He is the owner of Central Texas Gun Works, a veteran of the United States Army, and has achieved national exposure in such prestigious media outlets such as Forbes Magazine, Fox Business News, CNN Money, AOL, BBC World News, Huffington Post, and the New York Times. Cargill vigorously defends lawful gun ownership in this country without regard to party politics. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
And he's standing down here at the lower portion of the screen.
Good day, Austin, Texas, the live music capital of the world. Let's praise the Lord and pass the ammunition. All right, so, man, we're going to start off with Las Vegas. How in the world do you get your license to carry a handgun directly issued to you right after class? Is that even possible? Well, apparently in Las Vegas, there's a way. Here we are in Las Vegas, and take a look at this video here. So Las Vegas police say one officer and 3 citizens shot at a man who stabbed another officer with a screwdriver during an incident inside a gun range. So let me go back a little bit. So Las Vegas police officers were called at 11:59 a.m. last Wednesday at a gun range in Las Vegas after an employee reported that a man had been caught rifling through a customer's bag during a break from a concealed carry permit course. Now, the range employees escorted the man, Marvin Payton Jr., 27, outside to wait for the police to arrive. Seconds after police pulled up, the man attacked a female officer, striking her twice with a screwdriver. He actually he fractured her facial bone there. And everyone on the scene, literally everyone that was standing outside, pulled out their firearm and shot and killed this guy. Shot this guy 14 times. Literally everyone that was standing outside pulled out their firearm and shot him. So Metropolitan Police Department Assistant Sheriff Brett Zimmerman said Payton had a violent history with police, including charges of attempted murder, attempted robbery of a firearm, and assault on a protected person. Also involved police and arriving officers had knowledge of Payton's violent past before the shooting. Now, the injured officer, who has not been named, was treated and released from University Medical Center the afternoon of the shooting, and she suffered a fracture near her eye, according to the Metropolitan Police Department there. And once again, I want to take a look at this video here. This guy, goes to a concealed handgun license course, and I don't know what goes to your head, and you try to steal something from someone, rifle through someone's bag at a concealed handgun license course, and then they escort you outside. Then you pull out a screwdriver, try to stab the police officer, actually stabbing her. And then literally everyone that was standing outside that had a firearm pulled it out and shot this guy 14 times. Boy, I guess that's how you do it in Las Vegas. That's how you get your license to carry a handgun issued to you directly after class. And this is just insane, crazy. And that's why we put a lot of different security measures in place when I, conduct my classes. And my hat's off to this gun range because they handled this perfectly. There's not a better way. It could not have, come out any other different way. That's the way you handle it. You stop that threat, of a violent person. Who knew he was going to do that, and they handled it. I can't ask for anything else, for it to come out any better way. And, we put a lot of different security measures in place. We try to make sure that no one brings any large bags in the classroom. All right, so I want to bring to the conversation and a little bit and talk about Florida. I'm going to change gears a little bit. I want to go to Florida, my home state where I was born. I was born in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. I'm now a Texan, been here forever. And so, but I like to, go to different states and look at different states' laws and how do those laws, look compared to Texas here? Because if I want to travel to a different state, you still have to follow those states' laws. So, you have your license to carry handgun here in Texas, but you want to go to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, you want to go to Tampa, you want to go to Orlando, you want to go to Miami, you want to go visit someone. Well, you need to know, what places, you have to watch out for. Are there any signs? Because in Texas, we're very picky about our signage. We have a 30.06 sign, we have a 30.07 sign. 30.06 sign means a person with a license cannot conceal or carry their handgun. A 30.07 sign means a person with a license cannot openly carry their handgun. So, we're very picky about our signs. That sign's got to be block letters, 1 inch in height, clear to visit the public in English and Spanish in contrasting colors. English needs to be exact wording, Spanish be left up to interpretation. So in Texas, we're very picky about that signage. And then also we have what we call, verbal notice. A person can give you verbal notice and tell you to leave. If you don't see the sign, you don't notice the sign. So we have that. That went into effect September the 1st of 2019. So we're very picky about, our laws here in Texas. But, what happens if I travel to another state like Florida? What if I don't have a license? How can I carry my handgun in Florida or my long gun in Florida without a license? What about with the license? Is there a particular sign that I have to look out for? Are there particular places? Can I go to the park? What are some of those things? So we're going to talk about that today. And I'm going to bring in an instructor from Florida to tell us, my counterpart in Florida is going to tell us, going to school us today. We're going to listen, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to learn today. Because let me tell you, this is a great instructor. You are going to learn today. Just like we do it in Texas, she does it in Florida. And so we're going to talk about Florida, going to talk about some other news, what's going on around the country, because there's some things going on. Let me tell you, there's some different shootings that have happened. We're going to talk about that. Talk about some bills. There's an Arizona bill. Going to talk about that. Going to talk about something that happened with a suspected gun permit, that we're going to talk about that. I'll bring that in a little later. And then a lot of people upset about, President Trump being acquitted. We'll talk about that later in the hour as well, too, because a lot of people want to get that off their chest. So we'll throw that in here. You can't talk about guns without, bringing in that subject as well. But we'll get all that down. We're going to talk about that. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Peace, this is Maj Toure. You're listening to Come and Talk It Radio with Michael Cargill.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here.
And shot Peyton 14 times after he stabbed this officer. I tell you, I've never seen anything like that before in my life. I tell you, that's it, you got to take a look at this video. Insane. All right. So let me bring into the conversation here an instructor out of Florida, Avery Skipalis. She's the owner of Skip Tactical Solutions, which is a 100% veteran-owned and operated business. And as a female military firearm instructor with over 10 years experience, she has trained over 10,000 men and women. She started her firearm training company as a way to empower men and women by providing professional training in an enjoyable and safe atmosphere. And she makes sure that all her students excel to their fullest potential. And let me welcome to the show Avery Skipalis of Skip Tactical Solutions. Avery, welcome to Come and Talk It. There you go, Avery. Can you hear me now? Okay.
Hi, thank you for having me on.
Hey, all right. So welcome there. So Avery, tell us a little bit about I gave him a little brief rundown there about you, but you tell him something about you.
I am currently a active duty service member. I'm still proudly serving in the United States Air Force. And the Air Force was actually the first thing that introduced me to firearms. And I became a firearms instructor in the Air Force about 12 years ago. And from that point on, I have continued to learn and just enjoy the journey of becoming a firearms instructor. I'm married and I have 2 kids. I have 2 boys. They are 11 and 14 years old.
Nice. Oh, man, awesome. All right, and thank you for your service.
Thank you.
All right. So, what made you get into the firearms business?
I wanted to get into the firearms business because as a female and a minority female going through training, I often did not like the way that I was treated. And I could only imagine if I'm being treated like this as a professional, how are normal civilians being treated? And I would have a lot of people ask me if I provided firearms classes. So I decided rather than me complaining about how instructors did it in the civilian community, that I needed to just go ahead and get out there and make a difference.
Nice. Okay. Now, I want to jump right into this, of traveling to Florida. I always talk about Texas and, what we do here in Texas. And, in Texas, you can have a license to carry handgun issued by the state, and you can openly carry or concealed carry your handgun with that license from Texas or a license that Texas recognizes. But what do people do when traveling to Florida? So, like, for example, if I want to travel to Florida and I don't have a license, I don't have my, handgun license at all, how can I travel in Florida with a handgun?
So you can travel in the state of Florida with a firearm in your vehicle. What I do advise people to do is if they plan on making a trip, they need to go directly to the state's website. And for the state of Florida, it's Fresh from Florida. And they need to get all the vital information from their website. Because what I see a lot of people do is they will Google a question, and we know how that works. One of the first 2 or 3 options that pop up, they're going to go with that versus going directly to the state's website. So for the state of Florida, you can travel with a handgun in your vehicle, but people also have to remember if you're traveling from one state to the next, you may be traveling through other states. So they need to look up those states as well.
No, outstanding. That's right. That's right. All right. So now tell us, what about with a license? So I'm traveling to Florida. I have my license to carry a handgun from Texas, which is recognized in Florida since I'm a Texas resident. There's some places I need to look out for. What are some of the things I need to, worry about?
The biggest thing is, first, I am not a lawyer. This is not legal advice.
That's right.
But when you're traveling and it's in your vehicle, make sure that your firearm is always securely encased. I like to stress that when I'm teaching classes. It needs to be securely encased because that is a surefire way to get in trouble in the state of Florida. That is one of the legal requirements for your firearm being in your vehicle for the state of Florida.
So even with a license, I still have to have it in a case,
It needs to be securely encased.
In case. Okay. Can it be in a holster on me?
So it can be in a holster, whether or not locked, secured in a gun case, whether or not locked, but it just needs to be securely encased in something.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can have it on me inside the vehicle, concealed on me inside the vehicle, inside my
Yes.
in a holster.
Mm-hmm.
Can you have it in the open in the vehicle?
No.
No. Can't open carry in Florida.
So, and that's another thing that I want. So, and I use the state of Texas as an example when I teach my classes.
Nice.
Because one of the biggest differences between Florida and Texas, although they do have reciprocity with one another, is that Texas allows open carry, but Florida does not allow open carry the same as Texas. But for the state of Florida, you are allowed to open carry with a few exceptions. If you're fishing, if you're hunting, and if you're camping. And if you're doing that, you can open carry to and from, but it's directly to and from. But you cannot open carry if you are just going out and about on a normal day.
Okay. So if I want to, I live in, let's say I'm down visiting in Plantation, Florida there, and I want to travel over to a little creek there, and I want to go fishing at the creek, and I have my fishing license.
You gotta add that part. You gotta have the fishing license.
That's right. I got my fishing license, and I want to go over to the little creek there that's not too far from the place that I'm staying. I can open carry my handgun, with my fishing pole, and go down and go fish.
Yes, but it has to be directly to and from. And what I tell my students is, a lot of the times, let's say you are going fishing, but you need to stop and you need to grab bait. Just don't get caught do not open carry when you are making a pit stop. So it needs to be directly to and from. So if you've had a long day hunting and you may want to stop and grab something to eat, you have to remember that you're still open carrying. So therefore you're not going to be able to get out and go into a quick stop for a store.
Right. Okay. All right. Wow. All right. So that's the only way you can. So the only way you can open carry in Florida, and you don't have to have a license in order to do that, right? If you're going fishing.
So you do have to have your license.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So you have to have your license, and with that license, you'll be able to open carry if you're going to one of those activities there.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Man. Oh, we got to get open carry pass there in Florida then.
Look, we have so many Florida man stories, right? So.
Oh yeah, because there's one that I was talking about not too long ago where a guy was actually he was driving along. He actually videotaped this himself, where he had his dash camera recording. He's going about 100 miles an hour, and I tell people in class, I say, how do you think I know this guy was going 100 miles an hour? I said, because he recorded this on his own dash camera, and his dash camera at the very bottom had the speed limit on it, and so. So he's going about 100. Then he slows down, a little bit. And the guy who he was following, who was chasing, who was actually behind him initially, the guy pulled out a handgun and waved it around and I guess pointed at him. So then he pulls out his concealed handgun he had inside while he was driving and fired shots through his front windshield. And he thought that he was justified in using force and deadly force in that situation. But when he fired those shots, he did slow down to 95 miles an hour. To fire those shots. I was like, man, what goes to, and it's like the Florida man, what goes through people's head when they think of things like that? I tell you, it's crazy. And I know you guys have a lot of stories that you tell in class.
So I don't do a lot of storytelling in my classes just because there are a lot of those stories that are out there. And I know people have a ton of time to watch YouTube videos and they already seen a ton of those.
Right. Nice. Good. All right. So we're talking with Avery Skapalis, and she's in Florida. She's a firearm instructor. We're going to talk more about what happens in Florida. Going to talk about the Florida process. Going to talk about how do you go about getting a license in Florida if you want to get your Florida license, as well as having a license in another state. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Coleon Noir, and you're listening to Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.
U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, we're going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen.
This kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And you know, that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back, and I want to wish everyone a happy Valentine's Day. I know we're having some crazy weather here in Austin, Texas. There's ice on the roads, everything's shutting down. You know, just about everything is going to be shut down tomorrow. So I hope you stay in place, and whatever you do, don't go outside and fall down, because the paramedics, they're being inundated with so many calls for people that are just simply falling from the ice. They can't get to you. So just stay in place, stay inside, relax, enjoy each other inside the house, watch a movie, get on Netflix or something like that. Listen to the show. We're going to educate you today. All right. So, and this is also the anniversary of the Parkland shooting. It was 3 years ago, Parkland school shooting, and where 17 victims actually, lost their lives in that shooting, in Florida. And today we have on the show an instructor from the state of Florida, Avery Skapalis. She's a firearms instructor. And, we're talking about the Florida program. We're talking about, can we carry in Florida with a Texas license and all that good kind of stuff. So, I hope you learned something from this today. And, if you're planning on going to Florida to visit and you got your license from Texas, you'll know how to do it. So, Avery, do you want me to call you Avery or Skip?
You can, either one is fine.
Either one? Okay. All right, and I'll go back and forth. I'll call you Avery, and then I'll totally forget, and I'll call you Skip. So you have to please forgive me. I'm asking, forgive me now. All right, so let me ask you about the, rifle. What about carrying a rifle? What's the protocol for that in Florida?
So for Florida, everything is going to be concealed carry. You would be able to have your rifle, but it would be able to be in your car because you're not going to be able to conceal carry that on your body. And I do want to go back, though, and correct something.
Sure.
When it comes to fishing, hunting, and camping, you're open carrying and you're not concealed carrying. You just have to make sure that you have that license to be able to fish and hunt for the state.
Okay. All right. You don't necessarily have to have your handgun license.
Yeah, no.
Okay. All right. All right. And then so for the rifle, can you open carry a rifle in Florida?
No.
No, you can't do that?
But if you're hunting, then you're going to be able to have that.
While you're hunting.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. All right, then is there like any signage requirement or something like that for Florida? Like in Texas, we're very picky about our signs.
So Florida does not have that signage requirement, but another big difference for the state of Florida that I want to go ahead and put out there is that Florida has a license for weapons and firearms, and that's something that a lot of people really don't understand the difference between a weapon and a firearm, but Florida does distinguish between the two, and that's what our license covers.
Okay, so explain it. Go in a little more in detail with that.
So a firearm is considered your gun. It has that projectile that's going to shoot out the bullet. So we also have knives that they talk about. They talk about stun guns, and they also talk about knife stun guns, and they talk about billy clubs as well.
Oh, wow. All right, so what's the protocol for knives in Florida? Because in Texas, we can actually have any size knife, in Texas. We can walk down the street right now, and I can walk down the street with a sword if I wanted to. I can go and walk from here to the Texas State Capitol and carry a sword. But there are going to be certain places that you cannot take a knife where the length of the blade is over 5 1/2 inches. I can't take it inside of a school and, certain places like that where we have under what we call Penal Code Section 4603, which is a felony. So it's got to be, under that 5 1/2 inch, the length of the blade. So for Florida, what is the knife law there?
So they say a standard knife. They don't give those details like Texas gives the details regarding the knife, but we also have our concealed stun gun and tasers, and you're going to be able to conceal those things when you are using them for lawful self-defense purposes.
Oh, nice. All right, so I got my pepper spray, I got my stun gun, I got my taser. I'm good to go with those.
Yes.
All right, what about brass knuckles or anything like that? Can we have brass knuckles?
They all those are included in that when it comes to the weapons.
Oh, okay. All right, yeah, because I know in Texas we actually removed the knuckles from the prohibited list. They used to be prohibited here in Texas, so we now can actually have our brass knuckles ever since September the 1st, 2019 here in Texas. All right, nice. All right, so what is the
you said you said signage requirements, and yeah, there's no signage requirements here when it comes to the signs that you guys have as well. Really? But like the federal, we're still going to have those standard signs with the firearm and the circle, but Florida does not enforce that signage when it comes to those private dwellings.
All right,
the private property.
All right, so if it's a private property like a private business, and the business owner, if they don't want, people to carry their handgun there, what would they do as the business owner?
They would request for them to leave, and that's where I think a lot of people will get in trouble because. For one, I feel like no one should ever really know that you are concealed carrying. So if you do have that in that private business, they should not know that you have it. But when they do request for you to leave, then you need to leave. And then if you don't leave and they call the police, then you will be charged with trespassing.
Right. And that's pretty much the same here. Verbal notice carries a lot of weight. And for some reason, I don't know what it is, people like to argue and debate, the issue, want to argue and justify, and talk about their Second Amendment and why they should be able to, to carry a gun. They don't realize the fact that you're actually on private property, and the property owner, whoever's representing the property owner, the business is actually asking you to leave, and they have that right, because they have property owner rights.
Yes.
All right. So,
and I would never argue with someone when it came to that, but also they should not know that I have a concealed firearm.
Right, because it should be concealed, and that's the whole purpose of it is concealed. You can't see it by ordinary observation. So unless if you're doing a really bad job of concealing your handgun, it's going to cause you problems.
I agree.
All right, so what are some of the people that you get in your classes?
I get a lot of women, families, majority of the time, but it may be a husband and wife, boyfriend, girlfriend. But mainly a lot of my students are women who have found me on the internet, and they're more comfortable with the female instructor.
Right. Yeah, because it makes it a lot easier, looking at someone that looks like you, and to teach you those things, you don't feel, intimidated or anything like that, because I can definitely see how that does happen. Now, what about, I want to go back a little bit and get into, why you decided in the first place to start teaching guns, why, a little bit more in detail with that. You said, because you didn't want, I guess, people to feel the way, that you were treated and things of that nature. Let's go back a little more detail with that.
So I'm glad that you brought up the Parkland shooting, because that was another reason why I decided to start teaching to the civilian community. For me, I have 2 kids, and Parkland is within a 5-hour drive of my home. Oh, wow. So that could have easily been my kids' school. And I want for children, I want for women, and I want for men to be able to protect themselves if the need arises. But I just continued to receive requests, and I would always tell people, "Oh, I don't have time. I'm too busy,"
Right.
because I'm a wife, I'm a mom, and I also have a full-time job. But it was just really heavy on my heart that I needed to go out there and be the change that I wanted to see, and I needed to start teaching. And I know the type of standard that I have, and not everyone has the same standard. So versus me really complaining about it, I just went out there and started on my own. And when I say went out there, it wasn't really that easy.
Right.
It was really taking all the education that I have received and going and teaching other people. And I really didn't think anyone would want to hear what I had to say, because there's not a lot of people who look like me that do it. And I'm very feminine. And some people would automatically look at me and assume that that's not my job, or I don't know what I'm talking about. But it was just really heavy on my heart that I needed to share my skills with the civilian community. And Parkland was definitely one of those deciding factors that I said, I have to go out here and make a difference.
Right. Because I hate, like watching shows and watching things and seeing people do things the wrong way. So, you're just like, hey, okay, I got to, you got to help these people and help them do the things, do it right. Hand grip, stance, don't put your finger on the trigger unless you're on target, ready to fire. Trigger control, trigger reset. A lot of people, there's so many different things, and I always tell people it's very easy. It's easy to teach someone how to shoot and kill someone, but then the hardest thing for us to do is, you spend the majority of that time, teaching people and telling people how not to pull the gun out. Don't pull the gun out in this particular situation. Don't pull out this, and you talk about different scenarios and things of that nature. There are so many different shootings and different things that, people get involved in. And it's like, man, it's just like the one that we just saw in Las Vegas, where you had a group of people that were standing outside. The police showed up. This guy stabbed this police officer, female police officer, and, everyone pulled out their handgun. Their training kicked in, and you can see their stance. I can see their grip. I'm actually, analyzing everything that everyone's doing. They're looking at that front sight, their rear sight, boom. They're right on target, boom. And they didn't hit anything in the background, the backdrop at all. Nothing was hit.
That's great.
Only that person. And I thought that was awesome. Let's, we come back from the break. I want you to, kind of take us in your classroom. What do you go over inside the classroom as far as basics? What are some of the things that people ask for? And I kind of want to let you talk and kind of give us a lesson of, what you experience in class and stuff like that, rather than me ask you questions or something like that. You talk about what you want to talk about, some of the things that you want to cover and stuff, because people want to hear, from a female. They want to hear from a confident female instructor, which you are. And so I want to also bring you to Texas. I want to do that. I want to bring you to Texas because I've heard about you. I've seen you on Instagram, and I followed you a little bit, and I said, you know what, got to bring you here to Texas, So, because I'm from Florida, and I love my Florida people, and, got to give them a taste of that, what it's like in Florida.
Of course.
All right, so we come back from the break. We'll talk about that and I want you to get into your classroom. What do you talk about as far as the basics, getting people from the beginning? They walk into the classroom, they don't know anything. What are some of the things that you cover? Want to get into all those little details. And we come back from the break, going to talk about that and also some current events. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Folks, this is Doug Man Jones. And I get my gun news from Michael Cargill at Come and Talk It.
Hello, my name is Edwin Walker. I'm an independent program attorney with Texas Law Shield. I want to talk to you today about an issue that we see on a daily basis. In fact, you yourself will encounter it on a daily basis, and that is the subject of road rage. I am sure that you have all seen road rage. You may have actually been involved in a road rage incident. Now, if you're a responsible gun owner, I'm going to give you a few words of advice on how to react when you find yourself in one of these unfortunate road rage incidents. While on the roadways, we all observe something that makes us upset. whether it's poor driving, unsafe driving, or just simply somebody being very discourteous. By all means, you should restrain yourself from engaging that person and telling them how bad their actions were, because this can be perceived as an act of road rage. If you're a lawful gun owner, you have a firearm in your vehicle, you do not want to be viewed as the aggressor in a road rage situation. Now, with regard to a situation where an individual has chosen to rage against you, and you are the actual victim of the road rage, if you and the other individuals are still in their automobiles, do not use your firearm to respond to any of the rager's activities. This is because law enforcement views the fact that you're both still safely in your metal boxes as removing any threat of immediacy that you may be harmed. So please, if you have a gun, somebody is raging against you, forget you have a gun. Don't display it, don't brandish it, don't show it, don't point it, and for God's sake, don't fire it. This could result in a lot of trouble for you. Now let's look at a situation where a road rage incident has escalated. It has escalated to the point where one of the participants has actually gotten out of their vehicle. We recommend that you stay in your vehicle at all times. Do not exit your vehicle, because the person who exits their vehicle is going to be looked at as the aggressor. If the other individual has exited their vehicle and they are not in contact with your vehicle and they do not have a weapon, then do not feel that you can display your weapon in an act of self-defense. People are allowed to just simply stand there and scream at you, scream whatever they want. Until they make a demonstrative effort to try to harm you, there is no immediate threat that would justify displaying or shooting or brandishing your firearm. Now, in the event that the person shows their own weapon, in particular a firearm, the existence of their weapon would give you reasonable belief that there was an immediate threat of harm that would justify an act of force or deadly force. Even in this situation, I would be very cautious. Now, if this situation escalates even further, where the person...
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now, here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so we're back and we're talking with the owner of Skips Tactical Solutions, Avery Skapalis, and she's out of Florida. We're talking about, talking about guns. We're talking guns, and more guns, and gun training. That's what we're talking about, gun training. All right, so, hey, Avery, so tell us, people walk into your class, they want to learn how to shoot, they want to take a beginning course, tell me, just give me a rundown of what you cover in class.
So when it comes to the concealed carry, the Florida concealed carry class, that class is a 3-hour class. Per the state of Florida, there is not a time requirement for that class. I like to do 3 hours. You will see various different times when it comes to different instructors, but I found 3 hours to be a nice amount of time to get the information out there. I do a quick introduction of myself. I tell them my background. I think it's very important for people to know that I did not grow up around firearms, because a lot of their reservation comes from the fact that someone's not relatable. I'm very relatable to them because I just started to get really comfortable and become an instructor 12 years ago. And now I'm at the level that I am now, but I share that, that was a journey for me. I wasn't always here, and I wasn't always comfortable and confident when it came to a firearm. So I like to explain my background in that so that they can, get over some of their reservations. And we talk about, in the beginning, we go over like definitions. Like, we're getting a lot of the legal requirements and the definitions out of the way, because that's kind of the boring stuff that they really don't want to hear. And then we go into like the mindset. And these are things that when people would tell me the different things that they learned when they took a class, they didn't really share these things. And it's not that I would ask people would tell me what they learned when they went to a class. Like, let's say it was a neighbor, and they would ask me if I taught the class, and I said no. And then they would take a class, and then they would share with me what they learned. And I didn't really hear people talking about mindset. And that is extremely important when it comes to carrying a firearm, because anyone that can pass those legal requirements can purchase a firearm, right? And in the state of Florida, you can have a firearm in your home and defend your home. And defend yourself in your home. But that doesn't mean that you know how to use it. That doesn't mean that you're comfortable and confident, right? So there's a certain mindset around just being situationally aware of where you are, because a lot of the times we can avoid things ahead of time. But we talk about the mindset. I share my why, and I think that's really important for people to know what my why is. And my why is because I want to protect myself. I want to protect my kids. I want to protect my family. But I also take it a step above that, and I'm willing to protect those who cannot protect themselves, because some people are just not willing to protect themselves. And it may take for a worst case scenario to happen, right? For them to experience a very traumatic event, and then they may come around. So when it comes to those instances, I'm willing to carry a concealed firearm to be able to protect those people that cannot protect themselves. So we do go over that mindset, because everyone is not built for this. People come to the class and they may share, well, do I have to shoot this person? Well, if someone is willing to shoot you in your chest, why are you not willing to shoot them back? And not everyone's willing to do that. And I share with them, if they're not comfortable and confident when they pull that firearm out, there is a high chance that that firearm can be used against them. So that's very important for students to know as well, because I find you just don't know what you don't know. And we go over that defensive mindset because we need to have that mindset everywhere we go, because there are certain times where you cannot have a firearm, and all you're going to have is your situational awareness, and maybe you can detect a situation and be able to get out of Dodge before something actually happens. So then we go into the emotional, legal, and the social aftermath of a shooting. That's something that a lot of instructors don't cover either, because, purchasing the firearm is sexy, posting videos of it, that's sexy, and photos too. But what happens when we actually have to use this in a defensive situation? Many people don't think about the fact of, you use this firearm, that's now going to be evidence. Do you own any other firearms? Does your spouse own any other firearms? How are you going to be able to protect yourself if something does occur after that, right? So we talk about things that they really probably don't think about, but I cover a lot in that 3-hour time period. We're talking about that legal, and I know that later here we'll probably talk about the fact of you need to have some type of plan, insurance, so that if this does occur, you have a number that you can call and you can get your defense team up and ready, so that you don't, really end up in jail or end up with a hefty bill that you can't really afford. And then we talk about controlling a threatening encounter, because a lot of the things that we see on TV are inaccurate, and we want our students to know the right things to do. And then those physiological and psychological reactions to a life-threatening encounter, because if people do not know what is a natural reaction, then they may start to second guess themselves. And I tell people, if someone stops an active shooter, it is a natural reaction for them, or a natural reaction could be for them to be elated. They stopped someone who was trying to kill people. And many people don't think about that. You could still be remorseful, and people don't think about that either. But we talk about places that you can carry, places that you cannot carry. I do share with my students that the list is not all inclusive, because I do not know everywhere that they visit or everything that they go about in their everyday life. And we do cover a couple of scenarios. I talk about, I put myself in certain situations. I talk about, the fact that as a female, I may be more of a target. And people don't think about that. The fact that we're a target based off of the way that we dress, based off of where we live. And then you can also be a target by what you drive as well. If you drive a luxury vehicle, people are going to assume that you have money. And when we go through all of this in the class, we do go over safe gun handling. I teach them how to properly hold a firearm. I teach them how to properly shoot a firearm. And I tell them that this is only the beginning of their journey, that a concealed class does not teach you how to properly shoot a firearm. That is, there's a lot that goes into that. And the average person wouldn't think that, okay, so, there's the fundamentals. Like, what are the fundamentals? They don't think, they just see people shooting a gun and, you just pick it up, put it in your hands. But I don't do videos in my class because, you can watch YouTube after you leave my class. Like, when you're in this class, we're talking about the fact that Florida has stand your ground. And we talk about things such as, you probably shouldn't put your hands on anyone, like, unless you're willing to actually defend yourself. But just the run of the mill, like you trying to pick a fight with someone, you would never know what someone has on their body. They could be carrying a concealed firearm. So watch what you're doing. But for my classes, they're very interactive. I do tell a lot of jokes. I guess we can call them lame mom jokes, but we always find one person in the class that laughs at my jokes. I like to make it a very fun and open environment for them to ask me questions. And I tell them there's no such thing as a dumb question because they don't have the answers. They paid me to take a course and to answer their questions. And I want them to be very confident because at the end of the day, we're teaching them skills that may one day save their life if they have to use them. So I take it very serious. And although it's a concealed class and we're basically going over the law, they need to leave there confident. And I have a lot of people who leave and they're like, okay, now I want to take another class. Like, what is the next step that I should do? Because some people do not get additional education after they take a concealed class. That's extremely important. Like, this is a journey. You have to continue to be educated. You have to continue to build upon those skills. But for me, we go to the range where we properly discharge our firearm. I make sure that they're confident. They get a certificate from me. Once they receive the certificate from me, we have like a little mini graduation. We have fun and we'll take photos if they want to take photos. And I love to hype my students up. I tell them, look at where you started from the moment that you walked through that door and look at where you are now. Like, there is a huge difference in that because I know that there is a reason why they took that class. And I encourage them to apply for their license because there are some people who may take a class and they don't apply for their license. But as we learned last year, due to COVID, there were many people who never applied for their license and all of a sudden they wanted to get a license, but the state offices were closed and they were not able to get a license. And I'm the instructor that will call you within 30 days and follow up and see if you've applied for your license. And I tell them if they haven't applied for their license, go ahead and be ready to tell me why they haven't applied. And let's say if it's financials, then let me know when you can save up enough money to be able to apply for your license.
All right, man, I'll tell you, we're talking with Skip Tactical Solutions, the owner there, and we're talking with Avery. And you know what? Give me a call if you want to ask Avery a question. Our call-in number is 512-643-5483. That's 512-643-5483. Just give us a call. And let's ask Avery a question. Any questions you want to ask her about, Florida laws, what's going on in Florida, what are some of the things she does in her class. We come back from the break. Avery, I do want to ask you to tell us about some of those different scenarios. I want you to run us through a couple of different scenarios that you break down and you discuss in your class. Man, I tell you, I'm sitting here, I'm wearing a jacket. I never wear a jacket. I'm freezing to death in here. It's cold. And, our temperatures are crazy right now, and people that know me know that I never wear a jacket. So you see me in a jacket, it's cold in here. So we come back from the break. I'm going to ask you about that, but Skip, you have warmed me up. I like this. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
This is Brittany Glaze, and I get my global gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
Whether it's a typical traffic stop or you're just involved in a use of force incident, encounters with law enforcement can be scary and stressful. In the heat of the moment, you may inadvertently say something you don't mean or make an inconsistent statement. These are red flags for officers, and if they think you're lying or your story doesn't add up, they might arrest you and let the criminal justice system decide your fate. Police officers are trained to get information from you without making the interaction seem like a formal interrogation. But remember, from the moment an officer arrives on scene, everything you say and everything you do will be scrutinized in court. The prosecuting attorney will attempt to use anything and everything against you. So what do you say? You say, I invoke my right to remain silent, and then let your attorney interact with law enforcement on your behalf. One important note though, do not throw common sense out the window. For example, if the intruder's hiding somewhere in your house when the police arrive, or if you saw the perpetrator pitch his weapon into your backyard, quickly tell the police and then stop talking. You might ask, what about my rights? What if the police never read me my Miranda rights? Miranda rights is the common name for a collection of rights contained in the Miranda warnings, given to suspects when they're placed under arrest. The warning comes from a 1966 Supreme Court case, Miranda v. Arizona. In that case, the court held that statements from a custodial interrogation would not be admissible unless proper procedural safeguards were in place to protect the defendant's Fifth Amendment rights. We've all seen these warnings on TV and movies. You have the right to remain silent. You have the right to have an attorney. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law, and so on. So do police have to read you your rights? No. It's important to note that officers are not required to read you these rights unless you're in custody and subjected to interrogation. If the police show up to a crime scene and start asking you general questions and you voluntarily tell them everything that happened, those statements can be used against you regardless of the Miranda warnings because you're not in custody. If you're put in handcuffs, but you say something incriminating on your own without being questioned, those statements can and will be used against you because you're not being interrogated. You're just starting to spout off. This is why it's imperative that you know your rights, and you shouldn't rely on the police to read them to you. Affirmatively invoke your rights. Say, I'm invoking my right to remain silent, and my right to my attorney. Once you do that, the police legally shouldn't continue questioning you without your attorney present. But remember, there's a second part to this equation. After invoking your rights, you must exercise those rights. That means you have to keep your mouth closed. Protect yourself. Don't let the legal system take advantage of you after an incident. And Law Shield members, if you've been involved in a self-defense incident, remember to call the emergency hotline and speak with your independent program attorney.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
All right, so got a little bad news there. We're not going to open up regular business hours at Central Texas Gunworks tomorrow. We're going to open up a little late. We're going to open up at 1 p.m. And then we're going to have to cancel, oh man, for the first time, I don't believe I'm saying this. We're going to have to cancel our license to carry handgun course we have scheduled for tomorrow. Yes, I know. I know, because I care about your safety. I don't want someone driving in 8 o'clock in the morning, sliding off the highway from this ice and stuff, this black ice that we're seeing, that we expect is going to be on the road tonight. So we're going to cancel the license to carry handgun course. Everyone should receive a phone call, get you rescheduled for another day, later on the week or next week or something like that. So, and then we're going to open up a little later at Central Texas Gunworks. You're planning on coming up and pick up a firearm or something like that. We're not going to open at 10 o'clock in the morning like we normally do. We're going to push it back to 1 o'clock. We'll open up at 1, and then we'll stay open until, 5 or 6 or something like that. We'll play it by ear, see how the weather does. So we'll stay. So we'll try to, get those deliveries in. I know people are expecting firearms to be delivered. We're going to stay open and get those deliveries in, and we're going to, process anything that comes in that day. And then I want Casey to give us a little update on what's going on around the city and the state.
Yeah, Mike, it's definitely turning into a mess out there on the roadways right now. Basically, first responders are saying if you don't have to be out on the roads right now, don't. Bottom line, you've missed your windows. Just stay home at this point. unless you absolutely have to be out on the roadways. Snow is about to start moving into the area. It'll start off as freezing rain and sleet, and then it'll transition to snow later tonight. And then anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow is going to fall between 10 o'clock tonight and 5 to 6 a.m. tomorrow morning. That'll be the third highest ever snowfall that the Austin area has recorded. Not only that, bitterly cold temperatures. Another wave of Arctic air is moving in tonight with this system. Tonight into Monday morning, low temperatures, 9 degrees in the Austin area. Tomorrow morning, low temperatures, 3 degrees in the Austin area. That is this close to the coldest temperature ever recorded in Austin, which is -2. We have not seen temperatures this cold in the capital city in 31 years, since December 23rd, 1989, when it was 4 degrees at Camp Mabry. So to say this is unprecedented, the string, we've had cold weather before, we've had wintry precipitation before, but we've been below freezing since Thursday afternoon. Camp Mabry has not gotten above the freezing mark since Thursday afternoon. And if the forecast holds, it's not going to get above freezing until Thursday afternoon, maybe Friday afternoon. So you're talking about 7 to 7.5 straight days of sub-freezing temperatures. And especially with that dip down into the single digits, back in 1989, water mains were bursting all over town.
Wow.
And so, this is going to be epic. The infrastructure, think about the sheer amount of people that have moved to the Austin area in the last 30 years.
Right.
The 1.5 million people that weren't here in 1989. Think about all that new infrastructure that's in place.
Wow.
That infrastructure is not built to handle this. This is, I hate to get dramatic about it, but I know a couple of, I've been keeping up with the coverage that our good friends on TV are doing, and a couple of them have pointed it out, and it truly makes sense that this has the potential to be an epic natural disaster in terms of what it will do to the infrastructure of the city. So when city officials are saying, be prepared for a few hours, a few days without water, a few hours, a couple of days without power, be prepared. Take those steps now. HEB is still open. HEB is open till 7 tonight. There may not be much on the shelves because everybody's there right now, but stores are open. It's if you haven't prepared, if you haven't taken steps to make sure your pipes are ready and all that, do it now. We've got plenty of details for you at talk1370.com. We're keeping that up to date all there. We'll have updates on air and online. We'll be live in the morning with Cardle and Woolley from 7 to 9, giving you the latest on the roadways there, trying to put the pieces back together as this winter blast continues to grip Central Texas.
Wow, man, thank you. Thank you very much, Casey, for that update. That's crazy. And I hope the power stays on. That's all I hope for. Just the power.
Yes, indeed.
That's it. All right, so let's go back to Florida, and we're talking with Avery Skip Kapalas, and she's talking to us about, the license program for the state of Texas and, what it's like to take a course for the state of Florida. There we go. For the state of Florida, and what it's like, in Florida to get your license and to carry in Florida. All right, so Skip, take us through one of those scenarios that you were talking about.
So I try to not do a lot of scenarios. There are a few that I do talk about. One of the scenarios that I talk about is there was a scenario of a Black African-American pregnant female, and she discharged a firearm in public. And a lot of people were upset about it, but it was a domestic violence case. I think she had a restraining order on the guy, but went inside the home, came back out, and fired the gun. And, we talk about the fact that when you fire a firearm, like, warning shots are illegal. What goes up must come down. And if you're willing to do that, why are you not willing to shoot the person? Like, are you afraid for your life? Are you just scared? Are you trying to scare someone else? And, once you bring that firearm out, can you stay in the home versus coming back out? These are all things that we talk about. And then we also talk about a famous case It was Clearwater, Florida, and it was a older white male, a younger black male, and the white male was arguing about a parking spot, and the one guy came out of the store, pushed him, and a lot of people, they will automatically go to race. I don't automatically go to race. We need to really peel back the onion, and we need to talk facts. You know, remove the race card from it, and we need to talk about facts. And the fact is, you just don't want to put your hands on people. When it comes to arguments, I tell people, you know, like, if someone comes to your vehicle and they're arguing, like, you can let the window up and you can ignore them. And, you know, don't go out looking for a fight, which a lot of times people do go out looking for a fight. If you're a hothead, should you really have a firearm? Those are things that you really need to think about. But we talk about warning shots. We talk about the stand your ground for the state of Florida. I know there are a lot of jokes regarding Florida man, Florida woman, but I really appreciate the fact that in the state of Florida, I can protect myself. And especially with your home, like the fact that I can own a firearm in this state, I really do appreciate that, because we know that all states are not created equally. You know, some states you have that duty to retreat. And a lot of people make the jokes, but, you know, I really do appreciate it. And I like to peel back those stories, because a lot of times people won't really know the facts to those stories. They'll just see there was a white man and a black man. Okay, other than that, what really happened in this case, that's what we need to talk about.
Right. And can you go a little more detail about that case and what the law is in Florida?
So Florida does have the stand your ground, and I don't remember the exact names. It was a story in Clearwater, Florida, and the guy who initially put his hands on the older guy, he did end up dying. And there was a lot that went into that story. Right. But we talk about,
this is the one of the parking space. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
It's that one.
So there was someone. They were parked at a store. I remember this story because we covered this on the show. They were parked in a parking spot, a handicapped parking spot, and so the guy goes into the store and does some shopping or goes to get something, and I think there was a female that was in the vehicle, and the other guy, the white guy, saw the black couple parked in the parking space in the handicapped parking space. So he decided to go over to tell them, to move out of the handicapped parking space. And so while he's getting into like a verbal altercation with the lady in the vehicle, the guy, boyfriend, comes out of the store, sees this guy arguing with his girlfriend about the parking space, and pushes the gentleman. And when he pushed him, the guy fell, pulled out his concealed handgun, and shot and killed him. I believe that's what you're talking about.
Yes,
right?
That's the story that I'm talking about. And, especially when that story initially came out, tensions were very high, emotions were very high. But I don't like to talk about those types of stories, just because a lot of people will go directly into race and they won't really talk about the law. Like, they will forget the whole fact that, crimes were committed or whatever happened. They just want to go automatically to this race is killing this race, or this is doing this. But I tell them that it's really important for you to know the law. You need to know, like, if you can protect yourself, or the different things that go, like the different elements of it. And we talk about, there has to be the opportunity in the intent, because just because someone says they're going to do something to you, that doesn't necessarily mean that they are going to do that to you. But if you would have asked me 3 years ago if I would be teaching Florida concealed classes, I would have said no, I wouldn't. But here we are now.
That's right. And we're talking with Avery Scapala. She's a firearms instructor out of Florida. We're talking about different scenarios, talking about use of force and deadly force, talking about the stand your ground law. We're talking about the Florida man, Florida woman stories. We're talking about the law. We're removing, and like I like to say in my classes, remove color and let's look at the context of the law. What does the law say about this particular circumstance? And that is what I love about Avery. That's why I brought her on the show, because she's saying the exact same things that I say in class. This is Michael Cargill, and you are listening to Come and Talk It.
Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Jack Jones here, and I get my gun news from Michael Cargill on Come and Talk It.
I'm a U.S. Army veteran with a strong sense of duty and respect for our system of government. After 12 years, I was honorably discharged and decided I would fulfill the American dream of entrepreneurship and open up a gun shop in Austin, Texas. At my shop, I teach people to be law-abiding and how to safely use their firearm. On page 46, I'm going to talk about Penal Code Section 46.02. The day that ban went into effect, I went into my local ATF in Austin and turned over my bump stock because I'm a law-abiding citizen. But I wasn't going down without a legal fight. So that's why I reached out to NCLA.
NCLA is representing Michael Cargill because federal agencies do not have the power to rewrite statutes. Bump stocks are not machine guns. If Congress wants to change the law and ban bump stocks, it certainly can do so. But we can't have the executive branch rewriting a statute and putting people in jail for up to 10 years.
It's a problem because, this government agency has said, you know what, something that is legal is now illegal, and we're going to confiscate it from you, and we're not going to compensate you for it, and you're going to become a criminal.
The goal of our case here is to tell the ATF that they can't get away with this kind of administrative lawmaking. This isn't constitutionally permissible, and this goes against everything that our nation was founded on.
The bump stock ban turned innocent law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight, even though they were compliant with the statute. And that's not right.
This case is not about where you stand on bump stocks. It's about the rule of law. It's about whether an agency can rewrite a statute and turn a law-abiding citizen into a criminal. If the ATF can ban bump stocks, any agency can ban anything.
Welcome back to Come and Talk It. And now here's Michael Cargill.
So President Joe Biden today called on Congress to institute common sense gun law reforms, including widespread firearm sales background checks and a ban on so-called assault weapons, highlighting an epidemic of gun violence in the U.S. on the third anniversary of the deadly Parkland school shooting. Now, and this is President Biden's words. Today, I'm calling on Congress to enact common sense gun law reforms, including requiring background checks on all gun sales, banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, and eliminating immunity for gun manufacturers who knowingly put weapons of war on our streets, according to President Biden. He says the administration will not wait for the next mass shooting to heed that call. This statement reads that, and he says, we will take action to end our epidemic of gun violence and make our schools and communities safer. Now, this statement was made by the president today during the anniversary of the Parkland shooting. All right, so we're back talking with Avery Skip Kapalis, and we're talking about Florida gun laws. She's laying out some things of, stand your ground laws. We're talking about that, talking about a lot of good stuff. And Avery, you're saying the exact same things that we talk about here in Texas. And that's why I love it. You know, remove color from situations, to look at what the law says about certain situations. You know, we talk about different, you know, I do talk about, there's a particular shooting that we had happen here in Austin during one of the protests / riots, where a sergeant in the United States Army was working part-time for a rideshare company, and he dropped off a passenger downtown Austin. He then proceeded to our main street there, what we call Congress Avenue, which goes to our capital, the Texas Capitol, and he makes a right turn onto Congress. As he makes that right turn, and I like to remind people, you know, when you're turning right, you're approaching the intersection and you're making a right turn, it's normal that you look to your left to look for oncoming traffic. It's very normal. So just, you know, picture yourself coming to an intersection, you're making that right turn, you're going to look to your left to make sure there's no oncoming traffic. And then typically what we do, without even realizing it, we actually hit the gas and we proceed going that direction that we want to go before we turn our head and look at where we're going. It's normal. Everyone does it. And so as he turns into that intersection, there were protesters in the roadway on the road. And as he came to a stop, there was someone in the roadway who had an AK-47 openly carrying a rifle, which is actually legal in Texas. You can legally do that. You know, but the question is, can you stand in the roadway with the AK-47 at like a high ready, and this person had their window down, and can you, you know, does this person perceive that you're threatening them, that you're attempting to kill them? And so he did. The driver, the Sergeant of the United States Army, pulled out his concealed handgun that he had between the seat there. He fired 5 shots, shot that person only, and then the crowd cleared. When the crowd cleared, he hit the gas. He proceeded down to the next major intersection, made a left turn, stopped, dialed 911, waited for police to come. And, you know, my thoughts on that is that was totally justified. And so we go over things like, you know, things that nature. I don't like talking about color, don't like talking about any of that stuff. I like talking about the facts of what it is and use of force and deadly force and what that person perceived. Do you reason believe that, you know, he had a right to use force or deadly force? Did he think that this person was trying to kill him? And, you know, does it meet that threshold? And so those are the things that we talk about. So that's why I like the things that you said. You know, you're saying, I mean, it's just, I tell you, this room is cold, but you're warming me up. Avery, you're warming me up. All right, so let's go into some more details of what some of the things that you guys cover as far as use of force and deadly force. Skip? Okay. Go ahead, Skip.
Sorry about that.
No,
we talk about the fact that, you know, there's that disparity of force. And when it comes to it, you may perceive something may not be a threat, but I may perceive that that same thing is a threat. And the average person doesn't really think about that. And me as a female, there's certain, like me in general, I don't want to let someone get too close to me. And I cover that in the classroom because bad people want to do bad things. And we don't necessarily know who they are. And we could be in the store and they don't have bad guy written on their forehead. And we also talk about you don't pick and choose when you want to carry. Like, this needs to be a part of your lifestyle now, because I talk about in Texas when you guys had those shootings in El Paso, and then we talk about any shooting that has ever happened or anything bad that has really happened. You don't know when these things are going to occur. And just like a car accident, you don't know when the car accident's going to happen, so you don't say, I'm just going to wait and put my seatbelt on right before I get into this accident, or I'm only going to wear my seatbelt on Friday because I'm going to get into an accident on Friday. You just go ahead and get into your car and you put on your seatbelt. Just like when you get ready to leave your home, you make sure that you have certain things with you, which should include your firearm, because we really don't know when these things are going to happen. We also talk about the fact that when you're carrying a firearm, you need to have a round in the chamber. And I explain to the students, you know, you're not going to say, hold on, Mr. Bad Guy, really quick, let me put a round in the chamber. You don't have time, because seconds absolutely matter. And it's our life, or it could be our family. And so you want to be ready. And, you know, if you stay ready, you don't have to get ready. And you want to be prepared. And we just hope that you never have to use these skills, right? But you want to be prepared just in case the situation does occur.
All right. So do you recommend a legal plan or anything like that once a person is involved in a situation?
Yes, I do recommend a plan, and that needs to be part of, okay, I got my concealed carry license. Now I need to get a plan to go along with that. And there's many different companies that are out there. There's some things that may be important to me, and those same things may not be important to the next person. So there's things that you need to consider, such as the price. If you have a spouse or significant other, or even adults that stay in your home, can you add them to your plan? And you also want to think about different things, such as, I want to be able to pick the lawyer. I don't necessarily want to have to go with one, because sometimes you really don't mesh well with people, and you want to have a lawyer that you can kind of really mesh with. And you want to, I don't have $100,000 sitting in a bank account to cover legal fees. If any of you do, that's good. But you want to be able to have a company that's going to cover those fees up front. I don't want to have to cover those fees out of my own pocket and then be reimbursed for that. That's something that I want them to be able to cover. You want to think about civil suits. You want to think about lost wages, and something that I don't hear a lot of people talking about that I really considered when I looked at my plan was counseling. Do they actually cover counseling? Because if they do, that's another expense that you don't have to pay out of your own pocket.
Right. And then what about weapon selection? How do you cover that? You know, because that's a really big thing. People want to know, you know, what type of gun should I get, you know, for, you know, to carry or to have, you know, next to the bedside or whatever. How do you cover that?
I make sure that people know it's not a one size fits all. And it's also not a certain handgun or a company that's out there only for women. And that's probably one of the biggest questions that I get asked the most is, what firearm is best for a woman? And when it comes to women, so I'm 5'2", and a student that I recently had, she was like 6 feet, and her hands were way bigger than mine. And when we put a standard, well, we were actually shooting a 22, but it was the Glock 44. She was like, this is like really small in my hands. So we can't say one size fits all for women, because we're not all the same. We want to talk about hand strength. Budget is something else that is very, very big, because if you can't afford it, then you're not going to buy it. But I tell students, you want to get something that's quality. When we talk about firearms, when we talk about anything that's going to save our life, we're not talking anything cheap. We're talking things that are affordable. And you want to go with a caliber that you can use effectively. I hear a lot of people will say, oh, you need to go 40, 45. If that student can't properly shoot that firearm, then that is not a tool that they're going to be able to use to save their life. I'm more of a 9mm. That's one of the top rounds when it comes to personal defense. But I will tell you, there's a lot of things that go into it, but I recommend that they shoot the firearm and they get comfortable with it. And I also offer a gun rental, and I do a firearm purchasing consultation, because I want to put a lot of different firearms in their hand so that they can feel how it feels. They can know what they shoot well and what they don't shoot well.
All right. And then Avery, tell us, how can we find you? How can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and all of my handles are Skips Tactical Solutions.
All right. So, man, I want to thank you, Avery Skip Skipalis. There we go. For coming on the show today. Outstanding. I love what you do. And like I said, we're going to definitely get you down here to Texas, get you to teach a class for us, you know, here. And so, because you're saying a lot of the exact same things that I say here. So thank you very much. I really appreciate it. You're awesome, and keep up what you're doing.
Thank you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure.
Absolutely. I tell you, you know, and that's Avery Skipalis from Florida, firearms instructor from, man, Florida, my home state. Thank you. That was awesome. As always, stay cool, stay calm. More guns equals less crime. You go out there and you buy yourself a gun. You've been listening, Come and Talk It with Michael Cargill.